Hello and welcome back to league Talk, the podcast all about coaching, management and all things League of Legends. My name is AJ and today's episode we're going to be talking about two things, but it sort of encompasses together. We're going to be talking about routines and schedules. Now, this was sort of inspired by the conversation that we had with Mummus on the previous episode, so if you didn't check that out, do. It was a brilliant one, episode number 51. So we have breached 50 episodes now, which is amazing. But routines and schedules is something that I've been talking about for a really, really long time on this podcast and on this show. And it was super, super cool to hear about Mummus's routines and his schedules. But I wanted to break it down a little bit because I know there might have been some people listening to that episode that thought it was all a bit too much information when it come to the routines. But routines, in essence, can be broken up into a bunch of different parts. A lot of people know it as this sort of famous YouTube videos about morning routines and nighttime routines. But in essence, a routine does so many different things for us as esports athletes. Now, one thing that I always try and do with this podcast and this show is that I take all the knowledge that I have from traditional sports and sports coaching, sports management, sports science, sports psychology, all those sort of things, and apply them to esports. I think there's a huge barrier to entry for esports with the traditional sports techniques, but it's slowly getting better and better. So, from traditional sports, routines are huge. It's something that we use in performance coaching to try and better the athletes step by step. But what we're going to start with is we're going to start with how to build a routine. We're then going to move on to some of the positives and what it does for us, and then conclusion. But don't take this as full and final because there are so many more things than what I'm going to talk about here that a routine can do for you. In essence, I keep saying in essence, anything you add into your routine has its own positives anyway. So if you add in exercise, if you add in nutrition, all these different things are going to have their own benefits. But we're going to talk about a routine and a schedule within itself and how that's going to be something positive. Now, we're going to start with how to build a routine. And the biggest piece of advice that I hear from so many different people in the industries for sports psychology, all of that sort of stuff, is start small. And I have done this myself. I have experience. And I've got a pretty decent routine that I've employed as of now because it's 9 a.m. at the time of recording, and I've been in the gym, had some breakfast, done a little bit of work. So I do have my routine pretty much sorted, and I'm very much happy with that. But start small. Add one thing into your day that you think will be beneficial for you. So holistically, a great place to start is with exercise, as this is fantastic for what people like to call the domino effect. Now, the domino effect is when you hit one domino, loads of others fall. So the exercise is that first domino that falls, because what it can do is it can start to breach other dominoes, it can start to add other things in, it builds positivity, it builds mindset, so many different things. So if you're interested in learning more about exercise, I've done an episode, I believe it was episode number 22 of the podcast, and it was part 1 of performance coaching, which was a 3-part series, 24 and 26 about nutrition and your desk. So have a look at those if you're interested to learn a little bit more about what I recommend for that sort of stuff. But when it comes to building a routine, think of it as a house, and this is one brilliant way, and this is something that Ismail Pedraza did, who came on the podcast for episode number 49, I think. And the way that he sort of described it, and this wasn't the exact analogy, but something similar to this is it's like building blocks. You have one block, you can put one next to it, you can put one on top, but you need that first block in order to stack things, right? So if you start small and add one thing in, that's the best way to do it. And the reason is, bit by bit, you can add in new things once you believe that the previous acts are bedded in properly. Make sure you have the other activities to a T first, as if not, you may have a bit of an issue and feel overwhelmed. Now, what I mean by all of this is if you add 10 things in at once, so if you add in exercise, you add in nutrition, you add in making yourself a really nice cup of coffee, you add in doing 2 hours of work on intermittent fasting, that's going to be that's 5 things out of the blue that are super difficult to implement into a routine that hasn't been implemented with anything else before. So my recommendation is start with one. Start with exercise. That's a really good place to start. And then once you've got exercise bedded in properly, you've been to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, or even 7 times if your routine allows you, you can then start to add in other things. So you can add in, maybe let's look at fasted cardio in the morning instead of just normal exercise. Maybe you can think about your nutrition a little bit more. Once you've gotten to the gym, you can think about adding a bit more protein into your diet to aid muscle growth. It could be something along the lines of you wake up half an hour earlier and set that alarm earlier, so you can do some stretching before you go to the gym, for example. But please remember, go slowly. If you add lots of things in at once, it will cause significant issues and will reduce the likelihood of adherence. And what adherence means is basically you sticking to it. And especially in the long term, your adherence will drop massively. It might be great for a week, all of these 10 things that you've added into your routine, but after that you might just struggle. So things to consider in the routine, and I touched on them a little bit, could be things like exercise, they could be nutrition, it could be sorting out your sleep, it could be meditation, mindfulness, goal setting, or visualization, among loads and loads of other things. All of these topics I have touched on throughout the podcast that I've been doing. But I thought what I would do is then talk a little bit about my routine and what my routine looks like on the days that can allow it. So obviously I work full time. Luckily for me, and it's an announcement that I'm going to make now, hopefully with the podcast I'll be able to do a little bit more because I've taken reduced hours at work to sort of follow this as a bit of a passion project for me. So my average day when I'm not working, I will get up at 6:30 a.m. I will stretch for half an hour or so, 15-20 minutes maybe. Reason being, loosen up the whole body, get blood flowing, nice oxygen around there, have a window open always while I'm stretching. And then I will either, depending on how I'm feeling, exercise first or have breakfast first, depending. So I've just stopped doing intermittent fasting because I shredded a bunch of body fat, but I'm looking to put a little bit more weight on. I think I went a little too much on the shredding, but I want to get a little bit stronger. But I had been doing intermittent fasting for a super long time, so there we go. So I will either exercise or have breakfast, depending on what I'm doing. Now it's exercise then eat. I don't really like exercise after eating straight away, if that makes sense. And then I'll start doing some work. So here is where I am now. This is me doing some work. That could involve, recording like I am now. It could involve setting up a podcast and getting some topics together for the next one if I have a guest. It could be doing some marketing for it on the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn is the places that I do it, and Reddit as well. So if you're not following me on any of those, I'll leave all the descriptions below. I've just launched a new website as well, which is super exciting. So that's what my routine looks like on an average day. I'll have some food, and then once I've sort of happy with the amount of work I've done, I sort of let myself chill for a little bit longer, maybe go for a walk, get some fresh air, sit outside, something along those lines. But yeah, what we'll do now is we'll start to go through some of the great things about routine and what it can do for us. Because the first thing it is, and people really underestimate this one because they see it all as the mental benefits, they see all the physical benefits, but they don't see it as the benefits of time. Now, once you have a routine set up, you can help by blocking out the day and compartmentalizing time. If you know what you have to do, know what you want to do, and you can tick things off a list, you can prioritize things. And what prioritizing things, ticking things off the list can do is it can reduce stress and it can allow time for other things. So for example, you may want to get 8 games of solo queue in and try and win the majority of them. You do a set of 5 and a set of 3, for example. But once you've done that, you've woken up, you've gone to the gym, you've eaten, now you can start your solo queue. And after you've achieved the things you wanted to achieve in the day, now you've got time for yourself, your friends, your family. You could do some more exercise if you didn't do that before. You could cook, get some nice meals for your nutrition plan together. Or yeah, just spend time chilling, doing what you want to do, man. Because that's super, super important. Because a lot of people, the issue with this sort of hustle movement at the moment is if you're not into what you're doing and you're not into the hustle that you're taking part in, yeah, it can be super detrimental to mental health. So this is a fantastic way of blocking out time and compartmentalizing your day in a really fantastic way that allows you to have a bunch of benefits for it. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the ability to take some unnecessary decisions out of your day. Now, this is fantastic for business people as well. But if you spend a few minutes the day before or coming to a conclusion for the immediate future of your routines, it literally saves energy and brain time. So if you know what you're going to do and it's 9 p.m, you know what you're going to do when you wake up in the morning, you're saving energy, you're saving brain time. And this idea comes from some of the great business leaders. I believe it was like Steve Jobs, and I think it was Mark Zuckerberg and a few other famous leaders. What they did is they had their routine sorted. It would be wake up, it would make the bed, for example. They would go downstairs, have the same breakfast that they have or similar breakfasts, And it just saves time. It means they don't have to make decisions. It reduces stress. It allows your brain to wake up slowly. It allows you to start to think about different things rather than the immediate, what have I got to do now? It allows you to be a bit more present rather than just rushing through your day. But in essence, if you know what you're going to do from the moment you wake up to the moment you start playing solo queue, for example, you may you have to make very few decisions. And that's fantastic. For example, the moment you wake up, you could make your bed, as I said. Go get your porridge with fruit and a coffee for your breakfast, eat that, and then go for a 10-minute walk and start playing solo queue. You already know you're going to do that. That's a wonderful thing that works well for you. It's your routine. This could mean you could spend time when you would be thinking about other things. Instead, you could think about visualization. You could think about mindfulness. You could think about what your goals and aims are for today's solo queue practice. So I think this is really underestimated. It's something that's seen in the business world, not so much in the athletic world, not so much in the sports world, but I think it is fantastic. And then the next thing that I really want to touch on is sleep, man. Because I've dealt with insomnia for as long as I can remember, or a form of insomnia at least. And routine is the closest thing that I have found to a regular fix for me personally. Now, it's not a fix. I still don't always sleep very well, but going to bed and waking up at a similar time really does wonders for routine. I will be in bed when possible by 10:30 p.m. and I will wake up by 6:30. It also forces you to get the right amount of sleep. Now, we've spoken about the right amount of sleep, and generally speaking, the right amount of sleep is 8 hours. It does differ for people. When you get past 21, I believe it is, you can start to function better on 7 hours of sleep, as research shows at least. I can't remember the exact research, but go and check another episode. It's a couple of episodes back. We talk about sleep. But, yeah, that forces me to get the 8 hours of sleep. And I feel very, very good off of 8 hours of sleep. If I get 9 hours, I feel more lethargic, which is super, super interesting. But it's sort of feeling and being self-aware of your body, feeling what you need to feel, and understanding what's going on with you in this exact moment. It is super, super difficult to start, especially waking up at 6:30 sucks. I did it very slowly. I used to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I went to 7:30. Once I was okay at 7:30, I went to 7. Once I was okay at 7, it was 6:45, and then 6:30. I'm happy with 6:30. I don't want to get up earlier than that. That works really well for me. But what is really important is when that alarm goes off, you get up. Don't snooze. None of this. You get up and you start the day. Because if you don't do that, you're in a lot of trouble. Because then the whole routine goes up the wall, and your whole day can sort of mentally be ruined from that point on. It is really important to get that first victory. But this is one thing that I want to talk about. Then do something. Make sure your routine is firing and you have a reason to get up. Even if it's just to make coffee or make breakfast, give yourself a reason to get up. If you're waking up at 6:30, you don't have anything to do, you just lay in bed, but you're awake at 6:30, sort of defeats the point. The next piece of advice is try not to sleep during the day, and just force your body to take the sleep at night time. Your body will take sleep when it needs it. There's one thing I've understood from insomnia and a lot of sleep clinics is whilst your body in insomnia isn't quite the same, but most of the time your body takes sleep when it needs it, and you will fall asleep if you're getting the right amount of sleep at all times. And that's what does happen to me more recently. But a lot of people, this is the one thing that you can do is make your bed, and this is something that a lot of people talk about, is getting that first victory. My first victory is waking up to the alarm. That's how I see it. But a lot of people will get up, make their bed, and then start their day, and that's the first win. They've achieved something. They've ticked something off the box, and that's a really good way to start the day mentally. But yeah, so those are the things that I wanted to talk about, really. And getting to the conclusion of all of this, this is also wonderful practice in self-awareness, which I think is something that is incredibly important. You start to learn about yourself, you start to learn about things that your body functions with. You'll find things that you don't like doing, some you love doing. You may find that your brain functions better with 8 hours of sleep instead of 10 hours of sleep. You may find that exercise isn't actually as bad as you thought it was, and you need to get outside, feel the fresh air, get some greenery in you, vitamin D, all that sort of stuff. But one thing I would say is trust the process. It is something that will work over time. It just needs some experimentation. You need to find out what's good. But what we did talk about is how to build a routine. We spoke about how to block out your day and compartmentalize time and why that is wonderful. The ability to take unnecessary decisions out of your day, and how routine can really help your sleeping patterns and the way that you sleep. So, as I say, I hope this was a good episode. You can find my links here. It's at League Talk Show on Twitter, or Instagram is at league_talk. I am on Facebook. You can find my website at www.leaguetalkshow.com. I forget, ever so sorry. But yeah, I would love to hear some feedback if this was helpful to you. I tweeted out a picture of this guy that I'd been helping along the way who just achieved Challenger. So if there's anything I can do that will help with in-game stuff, out-of-game stuff, do let me know. My DMs are always open. I always reply when I get those messages from people. So yeah, get in contact. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the episode, let me know. Subscribe to the podcast if that's something that you'd be up for. And if you're around and if you can, I would love if you could leave a review of the podcast. I haven't got any reviews on any site, so if there is a review possible, I would love to hear it, whether it's good or bad. Any feedback is good, so let me know. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you on the next one.